Good afternoon, everybody. It's the 11th of August, 2023, of course, and I'm in Minsk. And this area is an area that I did a video from once before, but it was deleted. And of course, it's a different time now. It's, what is it, like a month or two afterwards, so it's not going to be the same topic. But first, let me show you this statue here. This is fantastic. It makes a fabulous silhouette, as you see. A woman with a spear riding on a buffalo. And I don't think there's anything written here to tell you what this is. If there was, I probably wouldn't be able to understand it anyway. Probably wouldn't be in English. But I've walked around this before and I didn't see anything, and I'm just making another trip to make sure that I didn't miss it. But to me, the symbolism is obvious. A woman with a spear riding on a buffalo. I would be willing to bet. For one thing, the buffalo is a symbol for Belarus. A woman with a spear, that would more than likely be symbolizing partisan resistance. So then that would probably be linked to World War II because of the partisan resistance. Another name for Belarus, you could just call it in English, or you could describe it as being the partisan country. And that's becoming more and more true today. The leader, Lukashenko, has latched on to Russia, and of course that's a necessity for survival. Belarus does not have practically any natural resources. They have some clean water, a lot of lakes, and a lot of the bottled water from Europe. I don't know if it still comes from Belarus, probably not with all these sanctions, but a lot of that used to come from Belarus. And fertilizer. Beyond that, the resources that we have here are human resources. Comes from the labor of the people. Some of this and some of this. That's also symbolic for this country. During the Soviet Union, a lot of the brains for engineering, electronics, and such things came from Belarus. So that's just some facts that you might want to know. But my last video, and maybe even this one, I'm going to make this shorter, might not have that oomph that I had before, because my mind is preoccupied. I might have a, well, as it looks right now, it's very close to definite. I might have a different twist on putting out information. So, and of course, it will have some influence on my YouTube channel. Or actually, how do I say that? My YouTube channel might have had some influence in getting this opportunity. And then, of course, maybe they can complement each other at the same time. And I'm sorry that I'm talking very candidly, but I was told not to talk about this, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. So that's probably all I should say. Say no more, as that goes, Monty Python. So, but some of the things I want to talk about, I didn't write notes for certain things, but I'm watching what's going on in Niger, and the rest of you are as well. And one thing that's become obvious is these ECOWAS states, this, what is it, Economic Community of West African States. I guess that's what that stands for. They're obviously heavily influenced by the very powerful Western powers of the United States and France. As you know, Niger has very decent uranium deposits as well as other minerals. One of those minerals, of course, is phosphate. Phosphate is used in fertilizer. Belarus has potassium. You know, there are the three main macronutrients that plants need, and you know, the fertilizer is made normally as a minimum, and they have to list what these things are. Well, not really what they are. It's called the NPK, but at least they have to list what percentage of these elements, you know, nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium, what sort of percentage of this fertilizer has which amount of these nutrients. And of course, sometimes it includes magnesium and calcium normally, but a lot of these other micronutrients are not really listed. And you know, phosphate, the biggest phosphate reserves are coming from Morocco, but of course it sounds like Niger has some phosphates as well. Phosphate is normally a nutrient that is used for developing strong roots in a plant. Nitrogen is for the overall growth of the plant, and potassium, like what we have in Belarus, normally is very important to fruiting, for developing fruit of plants. And Belarus, of course, is not a country that's really that suited for agriculture, believe it or not. I guess it's they have some sort of a rating as to signify on the worthiness of a country and its fertilizer. I mean, its agriculture. And for example, much of the United States is given 70% or more, and Belarus only has a 30% rating for having great agriculture. Probably Ukraine is also up above 70%. And this is a lot of time has to do with everything. I think soils are very good in most places in Belarus, of course, but it's the maybe the growing temperature, things like that, altitude. You know, there's so many factors in growing plants. As you know, that was one of my jobs as a farmer. So I farmed in the Caribbean, and a lot of these things you have to look at, and the depth of your soils, things like that. Like Hawaii, for example, I think they don't have that deep of soils, so they grow coffee and they do have a lot of successful agriculture, but they don't have that much depth in their soils. It's just something that you might want to know. So, but that's just one topic. And what I was just wanting to say is, you know, there are some valuable resources in Niger, and the West does not want to let these go. And of course, it's particularly uranium. And I think it was, what was it, 23% of the world's uranium? I'm not too sure, but anyway, it's a significant amount, and most of that uranium goes to France. And I said in the last video, they pay a pittance for it. They pay far, far, far below what the amount is on the open market for uranium. They only pay 5% of the value. So it's very obvious that this country has been very heavily exploited. And I can imagine, I don't know anything about mining, but I can imagine that there are very dangers to health, very big dangers to health for those that are mining uranium. You know, it's radioactive. So I don't know. I'm guessing, but I think that's a good guess. So, but anyway, it looks like they can't decide on whether they're going to use military action or not. And it seems to me like the government of Niger is being very reasonable. But the people really don't want the old government. And I have to give a big thanks to Alex Cristoforo, because he found something in the Economist magazine. Well, it's not a magazine, I guess online magazine, I guess you should say. And where did I write that? It said that, and this is a Western publication, so this is like anti-Russian, anti-establishment. So this is a pro-establishment source. And it says that 73% of the people of Niger support the coup government. 73%. That is absolutely phenomenal. So an invasion from these ECOWAS states, or France alone, or the United States, or anything like that, is not very popular. The people are not going to look at that very, very well. And there's some people putting out that that Wagner is there and has always been there, and they're the cause of this. But I'm not really even seeing any real information that the Wagner group is there. Jackson Hinkle put something out. I haven't heard it anywhere else, and to be honest with you, I don't know. I think there was Wagner in Mali, and they share a border there, but Wagner is, of course, associated with the Russian government. The Russian government doesn't want anything to do with overthrowing of any kind of a government, so they're just not getting involved. They know that the present coup government is actually pro-Russian, so I think they're just keeping their mouth shut. But you know that the Western countries are going to try to find some way to say, Russia did it! Russia! Everything that goes wrong, Russia! You guys know that. Everybody, I don't know. Everybody knows that has any working brain cells, so. But also, what was it yesterday? Some other news. This is just some minor point of interest. Yesterday, 10th of August, we're talking Northern Hemisphere here. It snowed in Italy. It was, of course, in the Alp Mountains, but August, I've never heard of that. I lived for a short time in a place in eastern Oregon, high desert. Yes, high desert. And it snowed once there. I wasn't living there at the time, but everybody still talks about it. But it snowed on the 4th of July. It snowed in the high desert on the 4th of July. Very odd, very odd. But a main point, what I wanted to talk about today is because it's really, affects me. It affects me. It has a little bit to do with that new film, The Sound of Freedom, which is, of course, promoted by Mel Gibson, and the main actor is Jim Caviezel, and Jim Caviezel, spelled with a C, Caviezel, in case you don't know him, and he played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, in that film by Mel Gibson, and he's also the star of this film. Very good actor, very good, and apparently now he's an outcast of Hollywood because of this film. And you watch the film. I watched it online. Of course, it's still kind of in bootleg quality because it's a fairly new film, and heavy pressure to give no promotion to this film, not to sell it on Amazon, not to have it on Netflix. I don't know even what Netflix is. I know it's some place you watch movies. I've lived out of the US for quite some time, and I'm kind of a cheap guy. I don't like to spend so much money on entertainment, rather enjoy life, at least the things that are free in life. So, but anyway, so it's not going to be getting that much promotion from anybody else anywhere. And what this film is about, it's about child trafficking. I mentioned this before in another video, but there are some people of strong conviction, that are supporting this actor and supporting this film. Mark, now I don't even know his name. Some big actors, let's just say some big, very few, but a lot of the big ones, they're attacking this film. And as I say, this Jim Caviezel, I suppose now he's an outcast from Hollywood. And I saw something else from him that really caught my notice. It was something, I think it was a short. Sometimes you're very surprised that these things get on YouTube because a lot of the stuff I'm not allowed to talk about. I get censored heavily and threatened for talking about this sort of thing. But he was talking about, and he gave an example of technology today in, I guess the word would be transmuting sicknesses, created sicknesses, or discovered or engineered sicknesses. And what I was talking about before, what's really frightening, it frightens me, should frighten everyone, but most people are, it's very distasteful subject to talk about, so people don't do that. And that's one reason why I like John Mark Dougan, because he approaches a lot of these subjects that nobody else really wants to talk about, because it is so depressing. It's depressing for you to hear this stuff, and I feel it's needed. I feel, because when you don't talk about these things, and these things, something happens, and the global elite can tell you, oh, it came because some bats were pooping on some other animals in a cage or something like that. You all know about what I'm talking about on that one right there. But the level of technology, what they have right now, and I've mentioned this before, and I'm glad that a prominent actor, Jim Caviezel, has talking about this right now. And he's even a little bit more knowledgeable on this subject, of course, than I am. I'm only, you know, the product of what I hear in certain news feeds in some places where a lot of this stuff is banned in the United States and other countries, and you're not going to hear that, so I've heard it and I've been mentioning that. But what it is that they have technology today to create, just say, a sickness. And what Jim Caviezel was talking about, based on his DNA, his genetic background, and he was saying that he is like part Swedish and something else, and they can use these genetics and say that there's nobody else, either say on a plane, on a transatlantic flight or across the United States, maybe a 2-hour, maybe a 1-hour flight. I don't think it takes very long, but maybe even a half an hour flight. And I'm sure that it would only take that long. But they can release something in the air that you breathe. And only one person will get sick from that. And one person might get a heart attack based on their genetic backup, their background. And for anybody seeing this, anybody seeing this, oh, the person just got a heart attack. But they have the technology to make this happen, and make it happen to maybe one person and not anybody else. Along with that, I should mention, I wasn't even thinking about this, didn't write it in notes, but I like to look at a lot of news, and so I was watching some court hearing, and I can't recall on which vlogger put this on, but this was a hearing of members of the government of Australia, and they were interviewing people from companies that produce these medications that give you a shot in the arm and are supposed to either make you immune from something, or you know the word booster, the boosters are you know what I'm talking about. But anyhow, it was a trial about what happened in these with these shots that they were giving people in the arm. And as I said, this was on YouTube, so if I get deleted for this, and I might, it's not anything that somebody else has not already said on YouTube, so I don't know why. Well, I know why they would pick on me. I have a small channel. I don't really bring them that much income, so YouTube, so. And I guess it would be a goal to get rid of people like me before people start listening. So start listening to the things I say. I think I monetize, but I'm not really interested in trying to make a lot of money, so I'm not doing this for views. I'm doing this because I don't really like what's going on. And I came to this country in Belarus right here, because the government sees things a lot more differently. Isn't it odd? Isn't it odd? Let me just say that a place like this actually cares more about the freedom of your freedom of choice and the freedom of people, and then they call him a dictator. But yet you go to a free country that forces you to put something in your arm, and they don't force you over here. And I've seen where you had a lot of these people fleeing from this mini mobilization that they had in Russia. And the leader of this country, Lukashenko, Vladimir Putin was wondering, because this was not a very major mobilization. So Vladimir Putin was wondering, what am I going to do? Should I close the borders and stop these people? And Lukashenko from this country said, let them go. Just let them go, So he's got a different view on life, and I think most people, not even the Belarusian people, really understand Lukashenko. He knows and believes that people should have a freedom of choice. He has his own freedom of choice. He did not stick this medication in his arm, but he did not tell anybody not to do it. A dictator would say, you know, don't do it. You're not allowed to do it. They would ban it from the country. And conversely, you can look at other countries, Canada, and people were almost forced to do this. Australia. So right now, I think there's a lot of backlash in what's going on in Australia. So there's some members of parliament talking to some of these high officials from Pfizer and I think it was Moderna. That's the case that I was watching, and they were talking about the effects of this shot in the arm, and of course that's something that I would not be allowed to talk about. So I'm not gonna give any specifics, and in this video they didn't give any specifics either. But anyway, they were talking about if these companies knew that some people would have some of these negative effects from getting the shot in the arm. And of course they danced around it and ignored the question, and were answering different questions that were never asked. And the member of parliament there in Australia said, that's not what I asked you. Do you or don't you, and all this. And they just, you know how that is. I guess it's stonewalling. They do that in the United States all the time when they don't want to answer the question. So terrible stuff, terrible stuff. But anyway, that's one reason why I open up my mouth and talk here on this channel, and not for wealth, and I have a great appreciation for other people that are putting out things that are true, and you know, we're all a member of humanity. We have to try to rescue what's going on here, and as I say, you know, some of these human qualities of hegemony and greed and power, and we all have maybe certain degrees of some of these weaknesses. Sometimes some of us don't have some of these weaknesses at all. There's a lot of people that don't seem to be striving on trying to get rich. I don't want to be rich. I want to be secure. I don't want to be and you see these elements in society. They're trying to force people to actually adopt these sort of negative aspects of humanity. Say, for example, you have a health problem, and in this country, a lot of medical corrective procedures are much less expensive than they are in a lot of countries, such as the United States. But sometimes you see that some of these, the cost of trying to keep yourself alive, because you have some kind of some medical condition, the costs are just unaffordable except for the rich. And a lot of these rich people, as you know, there's a lot of them around, the men behind the curtains, they are able to keep themselves alive with such things as organ transplants. And then you have to realize why they have these certain industries going on in certain countries, to a large extent to Ukraine. Child trafficking and organ trafficking, the drug trade, people trying to get rich off the fallacies and the problems of human society. That's about all I can say right now. A lot of this stuff that I'm talking to you right now, it's just kind of shooting it off the hip, so I didn't formulate the right words, and but I'm sure you are understanding what I'm talking about. But instead of me just jabbering on like this, I don't get that many views. My channel is very badly suppressed. But some of you that do watch my channel, or that are subscribers, and again, I'll tell you what, another thing, I subscribe to some channels, and sometimes people put out videos, and I never get notifications. I don't get notifications that these people put out videos, so they even suppress people that are subscribers. So a lot of you may not even know when I'm putting out videos. Very strange. I think Rumble sometimes is actually even worse. I don't know. Everybody talks about more freedom of speech on Rumble. I really don't know. I don't really get that impression. I was putting out videos and I would get like maybe 100 and, my great number of subscribers, I get maybe 150 views. Put the same video on Rumble and I get like 23 views or something, and I just thought, boy, there's really no point in doing this. So, but anyway, maybe in a very near future, I'm going to have a way, maybe a better way, to put out some information. You'll find out. I'll find out. Keep my fingers crossed. You keep your fingers crossed too. Like I said, I'm not allowed to be talking about this. I made a promise, so. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe by the end of September, maybe. More than likely, it will have to be about that time. These are serious people, and they're not slackos. So I think you'll know by the end of September. And then I'll be able to talk about it more freely. So now I've gone full circle almost. I should walk back to this statue, then I'll have gone full circle in my video. But I appreciate everybody watching, and if you're new, go ahead and punch that subscribe button. But you can push the like button too. I don't know. I don't even know any point in saying this sort of thing. But anyway, I'm grateful to a lot of you subscribers. The fact that you guys subscribe, it shows that you're able to think for yourself. And there's so many people in the world that can't do that, and they're conditioned not to think for themselves. And I'm just hoping that there's going to be more people that are able to think for themselves. Finding out information and try it. At least hope to analyze what is true and what isn't true. It's not that easy all the time. But again, I say Jackson Hinkle and the Duran and Emil Kosman and a lot of people that are, don't forget Mike Jones and Annie Kay. There's lots of them. Brian Berletic, people that put out very valuable information to inform you so that you can make a better decision for yourself. So again, probably the third time I'm saying that. Yeah, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.